Hello, this is going to be a Blender tutorial on how to make this animation, which you see here on my Instagram page. I'm going to be showing how to make the animation. I will not be showing how to make the procedural shader. If you want that, it is available on my Gumroad at gumroad.com/lukesinclair. It's only $5, so here it is. $5. And okay. So you're going to need two add-ons. The first is going to be animation nodes, which does not come pre-installed with Blender, so you're going to have to install it from this website here. And then the second one is cell fracture, which does come pre-installed with Blender. So to enable both of them, you're going to want to go to Preferences, and under Add-ons, you're going to want to install animation nodes first, and then enable them both. So go to animation nodes, make sure it's checked, and then also go to cell fracture, make sure it's checked. So the first step is going to be adding in our torus, and then under here I want to make mine a little bit bigger, so let's do 0.35, and maybe a little bit more, so let's do maybe 96 and 24. That looks good. We're going to shade smooth, and let's rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. And now let's set up our camera. So we're going to do that, and then go to 1, 0, 2. And then under item, to make sure it's centered, let's do 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the z-axis. For some reason Instagram only lets you post squares, so I'm going to render mine out as a square, and then do GZZ to move it in and out. You want to make sure there's a little room around the edges, because as you see here, it will stick out a little bit from the original shape. Okay, so we are going to start by adding our cell fracture. To do that, make sure you have the add-on enabled and go to Object, and then Quick Effects, and then Cell Fracture. Under Cell Fracture, we're going to select how many pieces you want, and that's just how many individual broken up pieces of the torus there's going to be. Maybe like 150 or maybe 200 would be good. And then you're going to want to see, all these can stay the same, I think, but we're going to not want to apply split edge, because that will make the outer shell and the inner faces be different separated islands, which we don't want. And let's add it to a collection. It's called cells. Okay, there we go. There we go. So now we have a collection of objects here called cells. We're going to want to hide this torus for now in renders and preview, just to make sure you do that. And then now you'll see this does not look the way we want it to, because the smooth shading does that with the normals, which we don't want. So we're going to go over here under Object Data Properties, under Normals, and enable Auto Smooth. But you see when and then we'll select all of them. And when you're selecting multiple objects, if you do something, it'll only do it with one that's outlined in yellow, which is usually the first one or the last one you select. And then, so a tip for Blender is if you hold Alt and click something, it'll do it for all the objects selected. Then we're going to hold Alt and move this up to 180 as well. Okay, so now we have this. You'll see there are a little bit some cracks in between, but we will deal with that later, because we'll solve that in a later step when we're working on freestyle rendering. Okay, so now that we have this, we're going to want to move to animation nodes. So let's open up animation nodes right here. Have the viewport over here. And then we're going to have a new node tree. Hit T to open up this menu. And under auto execution, unclick always and just select these three, because it'll make things run a lot faster and you won't know the difference. Okay, so now we're going to want to add an object list. so that we can have all of these shapes in animation nodes now. And we're gonna click X here to get rid of all what we have, and under cells right click and do select objects and then do from selection. So now that we have this, you'll see it's a really big node because it has 209 inputs, or I think that's how many I have here. When you do cell fracture, it won't always do exactly how many you put in. It'll do a number that's similar. See, I can't really see it. 200. We have 213. But you see, normally if a node's taking up too much room, you just close it out like this. But since Blender's not really meant to handle a node with this many inputs, it ends up looking like this. So we don't want that, because that's bigger than it was originally. So if you hit N, and go under Node, and Advanced Node Settings, we're going to hide our inputs. They're all there, you just can't see them. So now, the way we're going to do the scaling is we're going to take the distance between each piece and an object that's moving around in a circle here, and empty, and we're going to see the distance between them to determine the scale. So first, we need to make an empty move around in a circle here, which normally the way you would do that is adding a circle curve like this, and then adding an empty, and then we would normally, this isn't what we're going to be doing, but I would normally add a follow path here, a Bezier circle. If you notice here though, when it moves around, it doesn't actually change this location right here. So we're not going to be able to do it this way. The way we're going to do it is going to be a little bit harder, but it's not going to be that bad. So we're going to add in our empty, and here we can hide animation nodes for now. And we're going to do Shift Tab to enable snapping up here. Make sure it's on increment. And then we're going to want to go to frame 0. I'll show you why we're doing 0 instead of 1 later, but make sure you're on frame 0. And then with snapping enabled, you see you can move it around like this. We're going to want to enable auto keying here, and we'll move it up to the top. I'm going to make my animation 160 frames. And then we're going to go 160 divided by 4 is 40, so we're going to go frame 40, and we're going to move it here. Auto keying is enabled, so it'll just automatically add that. If you don't have auto keying enabled, just hit I and do location, but it's easier this way. And then on 80, we're going to move it down here. Frame 120, we move it here. Frame 160, we move it here. Okay, so now you see we have this, but it really does not look like what we want it to look like. It speeds up at some parts, and it just stops at the top, and it doesn't even move in a perfect circle. So we're just going to add, it still won't be a perfect circle after this, but it'll be close enough that you won't be able to tell in the final render. So we're going to add, go to frame 20, and here under location, you see this is almost where we want it, but to move it centered, we have to do the exact, on X and Z, we're going to do square root of 2 divided by 2. To get that, we'll just copy this number. And then we'll also do the same on Z. Leave Y at 0 every time. So now we're going to go and do it between these two keyframes as well. But you'll see, so we're going to do the same for the top one. But you see on the bottom one, Z is negative. So we're going to do negative for the same value. And then frame 100, they're both negative, so we'll do negative there and negative there. And then lastly, frame 140, we'll go do negative and then positive. Okay, so now you'll see it moves in almost a perfect circle. However, at the top, that happens. So it's a pretty easy fix. So just go down to your timeline, do Shift D to duplicate the node, all of them, move them over so it lines up like this, and then also do it at the beginning. Make sure it lines up. And now, hopefully, we should have a empty moving around in a circle, which is what we wanted. So that's good. So now we're going to want to find the distance between the two. So we're going to want to go add another object node. Oh, make sure you disable snapping with Shift Tab, by the way, so you can move the nodes around freely. And then we'll select the empty. We can name the empty, I'll name it control. Okay. So now we have the object list of all the cells as well as our empty, and we want to find the distance between the two. And you can't just connect these directly with distance because we have to get their location first. So we're going to do the object transforms input for both of them. Connect one to each. And one thing before we get too into animation nodes, sometimes you'll be working on something and it won't look right over here, and there'll be red bars at the top and bottom here. That's just bugs with animation nodes that happens sometimes. Since it's third party, it's not always perfect. It'll almost always be fixed if you just save your file first, and then close out Blender and reopen your file, and then it should be fixed. Okay. So now that we have that, we take our locations and we have to find the distance between them. So we're going to get a vector distance node, plug locations into here, and location into here. Okay, so now just to make this easier, we'll add actually no, it's called a viewer node now. They changed it. Add a viewer node, and if we connect distances to here, we'll see this is finding the distance between each of these cells and this. It doesn't show all of them just because that'd be annoying. So we'll just leave this up here for now. You don't have to have that there, it just makes things a bit easier. So now if we add a object transform, and we need to add a object transforms output at the end. And then we'll start with just scale, so enable all of the scale. And for vector distance, we want to plug it into here. But distance here, you see, is actually a number. It's not a vector. What a vector is just a set of 3 numbers. It's either used for scale or location. For some reason, rotation uses a different one called Euler, but we'll get into that later. So we're going to want to add a vector from value node. And basically what that does, it just creates a vector where all 3 values are whatever value you put in. So it basically just is 3 of the same number here. So when we put that into scales, we have to connect our object list to here for the objects. Over here, you'll see we kind of get what we want, but not exactly. Because we never want it to get bigger than 1. We never want the scale to be any bigger than 1. So the way that we're going to do that is before the vector from value node, we're going to add a node called map range. What that does is it limits it between 2 numbers. So we want to make sure that the max is 1. And then you see when we change the minimum, it'll change these values here. You can see how you want. We can just adjust it to whatever numbers we want. I'm going to make this one usually below 1. Let's do like -1 maybe. And then for max, you can make it bigger to make the effect go out wider. Let's do maybe 1.5 is what I'll do. And then for the minimum, that changes out here. You can see the effect it does. It'll make it smaller in the middle. And then for output max, I'll leave it the same. I think this is about the way I want the scale to look. You can make it different if you want, but this is how I'm going to have mine. Okay. And then, okay. By the way, I just realized this is going to look a little bit different. I made my Torus a bit skinnier than the other one, but it'll be fine. And, you know what, maybe let's change these up a little bit. Like, make them about that small in the middle. We can do this. No, that'll be fine. You can tweak yours a bit more from mine. You don't have to have the same numbers, but that's what we'll have for now. So now we have the scale working. But now we want to make them rotate when they're getting smaller. So the way we're going to do that is very similar to the way we did this. So let's enable rotation. And let's just drag this down here a bit to make some room. And we're going to do another map range node. Okay, and connect the distance into the map range. And here, we don't want to add a vector from value, we want to add a Euler from value. And I'll show you, I don't know why it uses different ones, but rotation uses Euler, or degrees, and then, or quaternion, anything, and everything else uses vector. But yeah, that'll be fine. Let me see, vector to Euler. Okay. Wait, no, actually we need Euler from value. Sorry, that was wrong. Euler. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. So we need to add the vector from value and then do vector to Euler. I forgot. There's not a Euler from value node. I don't know why, but there's not. Vector to Euler, and we'll connect this in here, and then put this into rotation. Now you see, it doesn't look like exactly what we want, because at scale, when scale is at its normal, hasn't changed, it is at 1, whereas rotation, when it's in its original spot in the torus, is actually at 0. So the way we're going to do that is pretty easy. All we have to do is just simply subtract 1. So we're going to add a vector math node, which goes after the vector from value. Here, let's make some room, and we're going to want to subtract 1. Okay, so now you'll see it's rotating them just a tiny bit, but we want it to rotate a bit more. The easiest way to do that is to just add another vector math node and set it to multiply. So now you can set it to whatever you want. Maybe about 3 might look good. You see this here. And now so now it is rotating them, but we can mess around with our map range node a bit to change it more. Maybe we can go up a bit here so it rotates more of them, and then maybe, let's see, 0. I don't know. I kind of like the way it looks here. So now we have this. You will notice they're all rotating in the same direction. I'm fine with that. If you want to change it, you can add an empty and take the rotation values from that. But I'm fine with them just rotating like this. So that's what I'm going to leave it as. Okay. So now we have all of this. And our last thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to deal with filling out these cracks. And you'll see how I have the outlines here. There's a few back here. We want to have those random cracks. I'll start by just adding in our freestyle so that you can see how it looks before. If you don't know what freestyle is, it just adds outlines. Let's do maybe 2 pixels. And I'll hit F12 to render. Wait, no, I don't have lights yet. I need to add, here, I'll just add, yeah, here, let me add some light, area light, just so you can see. If you want to have yours with a different material and you don't want the outlines, you can be done with the tutorial now, but I'm just showing how to do this for anyone that wants to know. And now, here, let's hit F12, is that light? Can we see everything? Okay. Yeah. So you'll see the freestyling, we have all these lines, and we don't want that, and that's because of the cracks, but we still want a few. So the easiest way to do that is just select any one of your pieces, like that one there, and then add a solidify modifier right here. And let's make this, we don't need animation nodes anymore, so I can close this out, unless you want to keep fiddling around with your map range nodes. And now that I have this open, let's make this negative a bit. Like, see how much it takes to fill in the cracks a bit. Here, let's do this and render it, see how it looks. No, that's not good. Here, set offset to 0. Oh, I forgot. It's because it's only doing it on one of them. Sorry. So let's start just point 1, and then we want to link the modifiers between all of them. So right click on cells, do select objects. I don't want the light selected. I don't know why that's in there with cells. Honestly, it actually won't be a problem anyway, so let's just leave it like this. And Control L, modifiers. Okay, that's a little bit too much. Maybe minus 0.025. Minus 0.025, and then we have to link the modifiers again. Even less than that. Maybe even minus 0.01 will work. Yeah, that looks about right. So now if we hit F12, you'll see we have the freestyle on some of them. If you add more thickness, it'll be on less. Then we have it all on these. And that's about all, unless you want to. I can just add a simple, maybe emission shader here to make it white. And okay, we can just add an emission to make it all white, so everything looks right. If you hit F12, oh, I have to link the materials. Sorry, I forgot. Control L, materials. Hit F12. Okay, I didn't select the things to link it. Sorry. Select objects, and then we'll link our materials. Now if we hit F12, we will end up with this. You can change up your freestyle settings a little bit to make the outlines different, but that is about all. Don't forget that you can buy the shader here on Gumroad, because I'm not showing how to make this right now. I might make a video on it later, but I probably won't since I'm selling it, unless no one ends up buying it. We'll see. Okay, you can follow me on Instagram to see my art, and that's about all. Thank you.